Hi folks, Peter here, broadcasting from an undisclosed location in my library. Still working on a little spiel while I'm inviting and adding Crow. Crow's invited. Now let's see how fast the internet is. And Crow is approved. How's it going, Crow? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can, yes indeed.
Oh, maybe put some light on.
Oh, that works. Yep.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I've got the prayer today.
Excellent.
Heavenly Father, bless the residents, the council, and the reeve of my rural municipality. Bless the residents, the councils, and the mayors of the villages in my rural municipality. Bless the residents, the council, and the mayor of the capital city of my province. Bless the MLAs and the premier of my province. Bless all the people of my province. May we discern the truth, and may we have the courage to stand up for what is right. Bless the MPs and the Prime Minister of Canada. Bless all the people of Canada. May we discern the truth, and may we have the courage to stand up for what is right. Bless the Supreme Court, Congress, and President of the United States. Bless all the people of the United States. May we discern the truth, and may we have the courage to stand up for what is right. Bless the leaders of all the countries of the world. And finally, Father, bless all the people of the world. May we discern the truth, and may we have the courage to stand up for what is right. Amen.
Amen.
Hey. Somebody I know just started watching, so I'm waving at it.
So, I think we'll just jump into what did we learn this week.
All right.
That's always fun. And I don't know. Well, I don't think I was paying that much attention to a whole lot this week. Kind of getting information burnout. It's like it's like so much information. You know, I mean, it's a playground in there. So what I did catch this week, Supreme Court's corrupt. Wasn't sure, but I think we're pretty sure now. And that is going to trigger some things down the road, by the way. Things that, you know, is just going to boggle your imagination. Imagine a way to get legal relief without relying on a corrupt judge.
I'm for that.
What we're going to be looking at in the future is documents are going to be written with a mathematical formula. And it will be a legal mathematical formula, and the document will be written in those terms. And as long as the math keeps adding up, the document is correct, and there is no way to argue the document, because the document is going to say what it's going to say, and that's it, period. And it's immutable. So that means that you write a document today, it will have the same meaning 100 years from now, because the math has to be correct. You want to translate it into another language, the math has to be correct. And we talked a little bit last week about gematria and numerology. All of that comes into play on that stuff. There is a way to translate languages back and forth mathematically. It's complicated as fuck. I barely understand it, but it's there, and it's pretty neat actually. So there's that. What else happened this week? Oh, arrests. Holy shit. The arrests. Wow. I'm pretty sure it's over 300 people were arrested this week alone, all connected to human trafficking and pedophilia. All of them. So huge amount of arrests. It was just, and what you find out is that these are all arrests from ongoing investigations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that means that there's more. That there's more arrests coming because these things are ongoing. So there's that going on. CEOs dropping dead or resigning. There was a shit ton of them this week. Over 20 for sure. Let's see. There were some other things that were happening. White House is in absolute chaos. I mean, I have never witnessed such a clusterfuck in my whole life. I mean, it's starting to make Trudeau look competent, is what it's starting to do, and that's saying a lot. So yeah, fucking next to that guy. Wow. And oh yeah, we didn't have a chance to. And then I watched Trump's speech after last week's episode, and well, I think we all knew I was going to do that. And yeah, it was pretty much what I expected. No big surprises. Other than, one thing that I thought was important that he got out, and I was glad that he got it out, was there will be no forming a third party. They're going to work on reforming the Republican Party. And I was like, good. Because forming a third party would have turned the whole thing into a complete clusterfuck. But, kind of like what happened here in Canada when the PPC came forward. And we talked about that. It's just like, there's definitely was some voter irregularities there, because it just seems strange that the PPC was able to get a person in every riding, but yet couldn't get any one of those people elected. That just seemed like a strange anomaly to me, because they had like so much grassroots support, but yet it didn't show up at the voter booth. And not even
always strange when that happens.
Well, I mean, I really didn't expect anything to. I didn't expect much movement in Saskatchewan or even other provinces, except Alberta. I expected at least the PPC to pick up at least 3 or 4 seats in Alberta, and they didn't get any, and didn't
nothing.
even, and nothing. And I was just like, well, that's just fucking weird. Yeah. I mean, that if of all the provinces. So what was
the point then? Is the question, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of what did, because if you're watching what was going on with the PPC during the last election, I did go out to some rallies, and There was probably at one rally, there was about maybe a dozen people, and at another
Mm,
rally, about maybe 50 or 60 people. So, I guess good numbers for Regina.
mm,
And, but when I was watching uh, uh, videos on the internet about what was going on in Alberta, hundreds and
mhm,
hundreds of people were showing up for rallies. Now, that might not like seem like much to our American listeners, but you got to understand in Canada, it's like for every 100 people that come out, it pretty much represents 10,000. Each person represents 10,000. Yeah, because it's just, I don't know, Canadians.
mhm.
Yeah, we don't get off the couch unless, there's, I don't know, there's got to be alcohol involved, I guess. So, uh, what else did we learn this week? I'm trying to think. It's because it just was such a slow week and I wasn't paying any
Mm,
much attention, but there are some things I wanted to touch on. And Trump was one of them, not starting the party. Uh, the rhinos are being exposed. After that
mm,
CPAC rally, man, oh man, they went right after the rhinos.
mhm,
And their days are numbered. Uh, Mitch McConnell was looking for a Trump endorsement, and I just shook my head. I was like, "Really? Where does this guy fucking come off? You stab the guy in the back, and then you come, and then you like see the kind of support he got at the CPAC rally, and you're like, well, shit."
mhm,
It's just like, wow. Uh, Biden's live stream, they cut that short. He was live streaming, and then at the end of, well, probably not the end, but it was the end. After
mm.
they had done everything that they were supposed to do, crossed everything off their list, Biden offered to take questions, but it was the way that he said it that I would just shook my head. It was like, well, Nance, I guess I guess I'm allowed, or I'm supposed to take questions, and I'm shitting you. That's like almost verbatim. And immediately the feed was cut. And the best part was is that the look on Nancy Pelosi's face, and then what you see, what I thought was hilarious, was you see shadows like moving back and forth on the bookshelf behind her. And you're just like, as soon as he said, I'll ask questions, it's like you just seen all these hands waving, like, no.
No, 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 no.
And I was just like, that just like turned into a complete clusterfuck in like half a second when he did that.
Yep.
I was just like, wow. I mean, absolute chaos is what it is. It's just, wow. And
We we have we have put together, I think, the most comprehensive voter fraud program in the history of American politics. That's going on his tombstone, man.
it was probably the only truthful thing that came out of his mouth.
That's what I, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I remember what I told you. They have to give us
Mm-hmm.
two truths for every one lie. But I think that Joe has kind of broken that rule quite a bit. And yeah, he's got God's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Um, man, I should have wrote this shit down.
Mm.
Yeah, it just the P. Yeah, well, maybe it'll all come to me later.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we can intersperse it with question period, and then when you think of something, because we've got a fair number of questions to go
Okay.
through, and then we can switch. So let's see. Let's start with that little video I sent you of the conversation I was having with some
Mm.
atheists on Facebook. Basically, they are how do I put this? They are more hung up on the Bible than this Christian is. Is what I'm getting. It's like, my goodness, what is going on in your head, sir?
Yeah, I mean, that that has already served its purpose in the atheist community. Like
Mm.
like atheists knowing the Bible better than a Christian, these were like argument points from an atheist point of view. And to me, that was a necessary season that we had to go through so that we could evolve our spirituality. You see,
Mm-hmm.
when I was reading that, I was thinking to myself, it's like atheists like to use the Old Testament a lot as a point to argue from. It's like, well, the Old Testament's like this, and and your God is inconsistent in the Old Testament. And my response back to that is like, I don't. My spirituality is not rooted in the Old
Mm-hmm.
Testament. It's not. To me, the Old Testament is just another history book, is all it is to me. And no different than reading the Vedics in India. History. And mind you, it's not accurate because there's been like changes through it, but you see where it all comes from. But when you like go pre-Diluvian literature, you get into pre-Diluvian literature, you can tell that the Old Testament is just all these books from pre-Diluvian times. At least the first part of it, right up through, right up until you get to the books of Moses. But like the whole Genesis, like most of Genesis is just a collage of like earlier stories, pre-Diluvian stories that exist in mostly Sumerian culture, and so they just threw them in there and made them part of their history. Which I don't know, maybe it is. Who knows? Well, it's part of all of our history when you think about it. So I don't. So I look at that, and it's just so you see that, and so the atheists might as well not even bother because it's. I think that it's become well understood in like the academic community that the Old Testament, that the first books are a conglomeration of earlier
Mm-hmm.
stories. Now, once you get up into like the story into the Kings and Leviticus, all the later books, you're getting into like now you're getting into Hebrew and Jewish history, and understand that that history has been glorified for national pride, of course. And so, but all I can say is that book. I mean, I don't got much use for it now in the 21st century, but I understand that that book and the other books that accompany it, they they served the Jewish people well,
Mm-hmm.
very well. Because if you understand, like, if you could understand, like, Jewish culture back like 2,000 years ago, those that religion served those people. They would have been wiped off the planet if it wasn't actually for their religion. Like, seriously, it's like these people, like, and Malachi Melchizedek, he knew what he was doing when he chose Abraham, and you know, and Abraham, like, Abraham had said things and made promises and what have you, and the people believed that, and they believed it for like 2,000-3,000 years, and that took them up to the point up to Michael's dispensation, and also to the next epoch. You see, we move in epochs, and the goal is always, we live in epochs, and the goal is always to get us to the next epochs. Okay, it's one step at a time that our history goes by. So before 2,000 years ago, that was the time of Taurus the bull, I am pretty sure. And so all the energy was taurine energy. And so the people were influenced by that energy. And so what was practiced for religion in that epoch doesn't necessarily work for us in the next epoch, and certainly isn't going to work for us in this epoch. Not a chance in hell. Now, here's what Michael did. So for the atheists, stop using the Old Testament as a point of argument. Let's get into the New Testament. Let's have a discussion about that. I mean, let's stick with that. And yeah, there's a few things in there, but the core message of the New Testament is the true nature of God. And if this was not so, then we would not exist. Think about that. If the true nature of God was not love and mercy, then the universe would have cannibalized itself eons ago, and we would not have the chance to exist. Does that make sense? I mean, isn't that a reasonable thing line of thinking? So the universe obviously is in cooperation. It has to be, or else it would have already devoured itself. And people are going to come back and say, oh, well, no, the universe is in balance. Well, what the fuck do you think brought that balance? Cooperation brought that balance. So the universe is in cooperation. So if the universe is in cooperation, then what you read in the New Testament holds more true to reality than what was written in the Old Testament. Say, let's bring logic and reason to the table, right? It's like let's not like focus on the little microscopic pieces, every little word. I mean, when you start fighting over crumbs, it's like, you miss the loaf sitting on the table. So it's like sometimes you need to step back and see the forest and see, like, what's going on here. What are the core principles? And so I'm telling you right now, it's like, the Old Testament, New Testament, night and day. They're not the same thing. They are two different eras of human existence. The Old Testament existed in one era. The New Testament existed in another era. And now we are moving into a new era, new epoch, and we have the Urantia book. So now even the New Testament that brought us through the last 2,000 years, even that has outlived its usefulness. There has to be a new spiritual revelation on this planet. Because, I mean, people are spiritual by nature. If we were not spiritual by nature, then we would still be animals eating in the forest. I mean, that's what sets us apart from all the animals. Yeah. I mean, think about it. I mean, we know animals are intelligent, and we know that they have their own languages, and we know that they're talking to each other. We know this. And if you don't think it's true, well, you need to go watch some new episodes of Blue Planet or something. It's all in there. I mean, we know these things. Shit, we've taught monkeys sign language. And they talk to us through sign language. How fucked is that? And they know what they're saying. And then we got, oh shit, love this one. There is actually a mat that you can buy. It hooks to your computer, and it's for your dog.
Mm.
And you can teach your dog to talk to you using this mat. I seen it. This dog was trained,
Mm-hmm.
and it would just go over to the mat, hit a button, need to go for a piss. And so the owner's like, oh, okay, you want to go out? No problem. There's no guesswork. The dog knows the button to push. Comes over,
Mm-hmm.
food dish is empty. It's like, and this particular, there was one video that I seen. This dog owner made this bigger mat, and it was fucking complicated. Like, from a dog's point of view, this dog could actually do out sentences.
Mm.
Blew my fucking mind. And this dog was like talking to its owner. Change the channel. I don't like this. Oh yeah. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, the dog was watching TV, didn't like a show, goes over to the mat. I don't like this.
That's cool.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
remember the bilingual collars they talked about? You put it around your dog's neck, and when your dog barks, it translates it. I wanted to get one for my Great Pyrenees, but he hardly ever made a sound.
And so there you go. We got technology that we can actually do these things. How messed up is that? So yeah, animals communicate with each other, but they don't have any spiritual inclination. They don't think about spiritual things, but we do. Fuck. Even the atheists are thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any atheists that are
Yeah.
watching, yeah, you're thinking about it. Why? Because you're talking about it. That's how I know you're thinking about it.
What I'm getting from them when I read these conversations is there's a few circuits that are dormant in their brain that are waiting to be enabled.
Well,
And part of these conversation may be what enables them at some point.
yeah.
So there's a
And that's the thought adjuster. That's the thought adjuster at work. Doing the subtle thing. It's like I've always said about atheists. They are on the cusp of belief.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they obviously are still looking for something,
Mm-hmm.
or else they wouldn't be getting involved in conversations. Because if you think you know it all, then what's the point in getting involved in a conversation? You already know it all, right? And so they're getting involved in conversations. They're talking to you. And I mean, some of them do bring up good points. But again, I like to point out, it's like my belief system is more rooted in the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I like the Arancha book because the Arancha book explains things better for my 21st century mind. I mean,
Yeah, the New Testament was great for its time, but it's we have gone far enough ahead in our understanding of the universe that we needed something updated if we were going to continue, and that's what the Arancha book appears to be.
yeah. And the
The
Arancha
New
book
Testament for the next millennium.
for the next millennium. And then in 1,000 years from now, we will have more
They'll
understanding.
give us something else.
Yeah, we will have something else. A new revelation will come. But this is the revelation for our time, for us to go into the future with. And it really only scratches the surface of what is really going on. And the surface that it is scratching it's complicated. I mean, it's still difficult to understand. We're just scratching the surface of our knowledge, and it's just like, oh my God. It's like, I mean, I sent you that video once of this guy that did this CGI and mapped out the universes as described in the Urantia book. And what was it? It was, it looked like the world egg, like in Hindu texts. And I was just like, wow. I was like, I mean, to see it in your mind and then to have somebody articulate it out for you, you're just like, wow, that is
Mm-hmm.
just crazy. And these are all like, it's, yeah, it's just all coming back in on itself. And the energies are constantly feeding in back on itself. And it's just like, wow, this is a self sustained system.
What blows my mind most about the Urantia book is it's 2,000 pages and it's an outline.
Mm.
It's probably the most concise outline that they were able to put together, but that took up 2,000 pages of our physical text. It was the minimum amount of information
Yes.
for us to go forward on.
And they actually stated that in the Urantia book, or I think
Yeah.
accompanied notes. It's like this is like they this is the minimum amount of information that they could give us
Yeah.
without us uh, trying to hijack the universe,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's because if in our current spiritual state, if we knew any more, we'd probably destroy ourselves spiritually. Like we would burn ourselves up, because there's a reason why it takes 1,000,000 years to go from the planets of time and space to paradise. It has to be a slow progression, because your goal is to get in front of God. That is your whole goal. But you can't go from here to in front of God. I mean, you would burn apart immediately. I mean, you would just disintegrate, because life feeds on life. God will consume that which he does not know. Okay? So you get to know God so that you can be like God. So that when you stand before God, you are God looking back at God. This is why the thought adjuster is a necessary ingredient in all of this, because the thought adjuster is a shard of God. So it's a shard of God's personality, and that is returning back to God, and God will recognize himself and will not consume himself. You get it? People? And so that is the only way you can stand before God. And here's the thing. All the religious texts tell us this. I mean, not only does the Urantia book explain this in a little bit more detail, but the old texts say the exact same thing, that you cannot stand before God unless you are God. Nobody really understood what that meant, but the Urantia book gives us a better understanding of what that means. It's because our goal is to become like the Eternal Father and make this journey through countless worlds, through all 7 universes. Because as you travel through the 7 universes and return to Havana and then return to God, by going through all of God's creation, you will understand God and then become God. And
Mm-hmm.
it's and you still have your personality and your character.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things related to that, I guess, that I've got here. The it says in the Urantia book at least once it's social and spiritual evolution proceeds in low gear. They didn't say it was creeper gear, but I guess as we understand why.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part of the, like the social spiritual thing. One of the things that I come up with some great points to bring up with, when I'm talking with these hardline atheists and to some extent evangelicals and stuff, but it's mostly the atheists who kind of who kind of get into it with me. I can think of some questions, if I'm here or if I'm just, out doing something, I think of, oh, well, I can ask them this, and that'll give them pause. But then when it comes up, I'm like, wait, what was that cool thing I was going to ask them that would solve this once and for all? Oh, I can't remember it. Anyway, but progress is inevitable, but it's necessarily slow for this particular development, or it proceeds at a specific rate, which seems kind of slow to us, but there's a reason. It's like when you're installing, let's see, do you remember the old, like an IBM PS2 or the 286 DOS computers, when you would install or upgrade your DOS from like 4 to 5 or something like that? It took forever for that progress bar to work its way across and install the basic program, the OS. Anyway, it's something like that. Or
when you say gear, it's like I think of the old trucks, the old farm trucks, and you put it into first gear. How painfully slow is that?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, yeah. That's what I think.
We've got one that's,
yeah, that's pretty much what we are going through. But we've been actually moving through very quickly because Michael had a plan. Yep. And I seen this years ago. I mean, I've read like a lot of history. It was one of my favorite things. I never liked history class, but I liked history. I thought history class was ridiculous. It's like, I don't want to memorize all these names and dates. I just want to know what was going on, And so, while I cannot like give you like specifics, I can give you like arches. And I don't know, I like arches until, and then if and if there's like a certain part that you want to look at, then you just focus in on that. But I think it's good to look at things as a whole. And what we see is, okay, Michael comes to the planet 2,000 years ago. And when he left, what happened? And, well, what happened was the greatest empire in human history fell within a couple of 100 years and was completely decimated within 5. You don't think anything happened? Mm-hmm. Are you kidding? If you understood just how organized the Roman Empire was, you would wonder how it fell and how they ended up with so many fucking crazy leaders, one right after the other. Like, I mean, what are the odds of having 3 insane leaders in a row in a very short period of time? I mean, these guys were crazy. I mean, we all heard of Caligula and all the crazy shit that he did. Yeah, you didn't hear about the other ones. I mean, after they killed him, another crazy fucker stepped up. And when you read about it, you're just like, are these people insane? It's like, why would the leadership at that time allow these crazy people to be in charge? It's like, I mean, one guy dressed up a horse and called it his wife. How messed up is that? And this horse was like at all the orgies. Crazy history. That shit fucking really happened. And yeah, and it makes you wonder. It's like, what the hell just happened in that very short period of time? Then the whole thing went to shit. I mean, I know why they wanted they wanted these crazy leaders in charge. And here's the thing. It's happening again today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think it through logically. Why you're a senator or you're a congressperson, why do you want a crazy person in charge? Because a crazy person in charge is not going to be looking at your corruption. Now, put that in the
Mm-hmm.
context of 2,000 years ago in Rome, or, and that is what you have had going on after Michael left, is that these corrupt politicians wanted to keep being corrupt, so they put a crazy person in charge, and that crazy person ended up burning down Rome and and one right after the other. So, yeah, they destroyed themselves. And then we got almost 1,000 years of darkness, where where only remnants of the Roman Empire survived, uh, mostly in Great Britain. Uh, that was the survive because that's where a lot of soldiers had all these like different outposts that had different soldiers. When Rome fell, they just pretty much stayed where they were at and started building their own empires because there's nobody to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
And all roads going to Rome were blocked. They were destroyed. And and then later on, they were quickly grown over because there was no organized maintenance. And so everything just went to shit. And trade fell off. And then next thing you know, people are not being educated. The schools are gone. This was all necessary in order to destroy the world that the fallen had created,
Mm-hmm.
and so that we could start creating our own world. People say, oh, look at all the horrible things that happened in history because of Jesus. He came to cause strife, father against daughter. I mean, he didn't cause it. He was predicting it.
Mm-hmm.
Why was he predicting it? He was able to. I mean, he's not stupid. He's seen where the shit was going. And he just basically told us straight up. It's no different than, if you want to walk out the front door, every morning and flip your neighbor the bird. I mean, or maybe just fucking, I don't know, let your dog shit on your neighbor's lawn. You let that shit happen enough times, what do you think is going to happen? Your neighbor's going to get pissed off, and his reaction may not be, conducive to your health. I mean, stupid shit happens. I mean, some people have different ways of expressing their frustrations. Some people go to a cabinet, pull out a gun, walk over to a neighbor's house and fucking kick down the door and fucking, double tap in the forehead and go back home and fucking finish his supper. Other people's expression of frustration might be coming over and taking the front window out of your car. Another way a person might express their frustration would be a shit bomb, poop bomb on your front step. It's like, I mean, you're gonna get what you're gonna get if you want to keep pissing somebody else's cornflakes in the morning. It's like, so that's pretty much why Christ, Son of Man, was able to make that prediction. That it was going to be mothers against daughters and fathers against sons and nation against nation, all of this. It's because he could just look forward and just say, you know what, if you dumbasses keep up with the shit that you're doing now, this is where you're going to land. It's just, what is it, psychohistory. If anybody's read anything by Asimov, the Foundation series, man, I loved his theory on how you can calculate history. And yeah, I think that I think the higher personalities certainly are able to calculate history and see the probabilities in our future. I mean, we do it all the time when we make plans. It's like, oh shit, I can't make that left turn, for whatever reason. So boom, 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 boom. You create new probabilities in your head, and it's like, oh yeah, I can go up to the next intersection. Yeah. So you're planning and predicting for the future. Just the personalities in the real are just doing it on a level that our brains are not fit to. Well, I mean, some people's are. These, I think that people that can predict the future, I think that they're just taking in all the information that is available in the morphogenic field, and that's all getting put together in their mind, and they are able to calculate a predictive outcome and be able to say, oh, this is going to happen in the future. And it's not that, I don't think it's because anybody can see the future. I think it's just because our subconscious can calculate the future and see what's, and, taking into account all the variables, then you're able to make a prediction. Again, we do this in math all the time. I was always when we were being taught physics, we were when we would finish building our equation. Our one of the first things you did before you started moving down through your calculation is that you would put all the variables together in your head, and you would quickly make a prediction in your head, and you just write it up in the corner. Okay, it's like, okay, I know that this is a quadratic, and I know how that's going to affect this number approximately. I know how multiplying these two numbers together approximately is going to affect this other number. You throw all that together, and it's like, okay, I might have an outcome of 94, and I might be within, plus or minus 10%. Who the fuck knows? And then you go down through the calculation, and then, if you end up with like some weird number, like, I don't know, like maybe 1 point something, you might be like, well, how the hell did that happen? I predicted a 94 up here. How did I end up with 1.3 down here? So I might have made a mistake. It's one of those things. It's a habit that just kind of forces you to recheck your work in math. That's all it does. And so that, and with enough experience, you do enough calculations, you can look at a set of values, and you can make an accurate. You begin to make an accurate prediction. Some guys that are really good, they can do it within 3%. I was never that good. And
I know in university and in pre-calculus, I think was doing not differential equations, but the thing before you had it was something to do with quadratics, and you came out with an x and a y, and then you had to solve the thing twice to get your answer, which consisted of two different values. And I had enough experience by the time when I encountered this particular one, I was able to skip steps and usually come out with the right answer. And then I got this one that was like way different than I thought it would be. So I wrote out every single step just to make sure. I figured I was probably getting the right answers, and I did. But I wrote down every single step and every calculation of that problem to confirm that I was getting the right answer, because it was so different than I had expected.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh, and as far as what's the thing? Oh, yeah. So what we're seeing right now, it looks like to me, is people. There's like two groups of people in the world. Kind of the world is, or either the world or I'm not like I thought. That's pretty much a given. There's the group who is suddenly finding this out, versus those who kind of always knew it. And we're seeing, because we have the internet, we're seeing the interaction between them in real time, pretty much.
And again, we predicted this was going to happen. And the people that are just like, whose eyes are just opening up, it's a nice kind of amusement to have. it's you know, because you got to laugh, because it's like, man, I've known this shit for years, but you know, it's really cute how you're like finally figuring this out. It's, I don't know, it's, I guess it's cute. I don't know, maybe I'm just an arrogant ass. uh, so, oh, coming up through here, yeah, and yeah, we talked about this before. After the Roman Empire, we had like 800 years, and we were like in the 12th century. We were we were starting to create a pure human, a Urantia type system based on the principles of the New Testament. That was on its way. That was like the Magna Carta. It bears witness to what what the leaders of that time were thinking. The Magna Carta was written and it was signed into law by monarchies. So you see where their mind was then. And then all of a sudden, everything went off the rails. And we talked about this before. In the 15th century, Dee opened up a pit, or in the 14th century, Dee opened up a pit and invited, lack of a better description, demons. They're the fallen. They were once material daughters, material sons. They were once Landagok sons. They were once Sephra, or so I mean they were once sons and daughters of the Creator. I mean, demons are not created. Okay, I mean, the Creator of the universe did not create demons. And so whenever you come across a bad spirit, bear in mind that that spirit was once a child of creation, and they strayed. I mean, yeah, maybe that's why they don't even come near me, is because I understand that, and I don't fear them. I actually pity them, is what I do. Maybe that's why they don't come near me, is because they don't get fear from me. They get pity. I feel sorry for them. It's like, man, it's like they know so much more than we do. This is why I feel so sorry for them, is because they have been exposed to way more information than us. They know who Michael is. They know who the McKinsey Dacks are. They've interacted with finilators, and it's like, I mean, I feel sorry for their minds. It's like, you seriously don't see it? You've got way more information than I do, and you don't see it. You don't see the connections going all the way back to Havana. They don't see it. This is why they reject Michael. This is why they reject the Eternal Father. They don't see it. And I have pity for them. That's all I have, pity. I'm sorry. I don't fear them. I feel sorry for them.
Okay, yeah, so to clarify, this is another, I think I sent you another screen grab of a conversation that I had about that. Somebody asked, why did God create Satan, knowing he would? But it's a little more complicated than that. God created, or technically Michael created, all of these beings that are between the sovereign of this universe and mortal beings. They have different functions and different ranks and different. So they also have free will. So none of them were created as an evil being. Some of them chose that for various reasons, which why does any person who supposedly has it all figured out, and then they go and do this stupid thing? We've all witnessed that, even here on Earth. It happens in the cosmos as well. Not as often, thankfully, but it does happen.
No, you
So it's
bring up
because of a choice that these individuals made,
yeah,
that they
yeah,
are what we call demons. God didn't make them as that to begin with.
no, and that's what people need to understand. They were not made like that. They chose to be. They chose to turn their back on creation, and if you choose to forget about God, God will not remember you and will not remember your existence. And if God forgets about your existence, you will cease to exist, period. Now, how these, and here's the other thing. This is actually, even goes even deeper. These fallen children of God, they understand what I just said. They know this. This is how fucked up these people are in their heads, or these beings are in their heads. They know this. This is why they will, how to describe it? They're like, I don't know, they will come into God's universe, and they will, I don't know, like a fish coming up to something, and they will pick a little chunk out of God's creation, and enough for God to remember that they exist, but not enough for God to obliterate them. They are walking this fine line in creation, is what they are doing. They have to walk it in such a way that God remembers that they exist, but they are also actively not acknowledging God. So they need God in order for their own existence to be maintained, and they know this, but yet they choose not to worship God. And so
they are mentally ill and self-destructive, is what I'm getting from that description.
yeah, I would say so.
There's some connections that just aren't there for some reason.
It's a, well, I was showing that in Lucifer's mind, Michael knew it was there when he created Lucifer, but it was a necessary part of the equation to create Lucifer. Is because when Lucifer was created, the potentials that it's hard to describe, because you got to understand creation for one thing, okay? When Michael creates his children outside of time and space, it's not like each one is created individually, okay? They are created out of a alchemeric mixture of energies and material, and that material, once it is catalyzed, will automatically create a certain number of beings.
It's a batch.
It's a batch. It's a batch. Yes.
It's like a factory run of a certain number of products, and there's going to be a bit of variation in them.
Yes. So basically, a batch is made from the same soup pot, I guess. Lack of a better description, it's not like that, but it's the best I can do. And it's basically, they're just it's just that energy is just poured into a mole for Lagandadox, and that mixture, as those energies are turning and swirling, the percentages become random. The percentages of energies becomes random. as it is being poured and mixed. When Lucifer was created, Michael could see in the energies the potential for his evil, but at the same time, the process couldn't exactly be reversed in that moment either. So Michael knew at the instant of his creation what the potential was for Lucifer, but at the same time, there was not a whole lot he could do about it without poisoning the whole batch or ruining the whole batch. Because it's like when a batch is made, they are all connected. Okay? So when a batch of Legendadox sons are created, they are all connected spiritually, energetically. So when Lucifer rebelled, you think to yourself, well, why didn't God just annihilate him immediately? Again, they're all connected. You can't just rip one component out of the circuit and expect the rest of the unit to work properly. It would have had an effect through the community of other Landadox sons that were created at the same time as Lucifer. Okay? I hope, does that make sense? It would have caused a cascade.
It makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, basically there was the potential in the way the batch was made, because, if you mix up even a cake batter or something, you're going to get a little more of something in some part of it and less somewhere else. And then, so this whole group of these beings was created. Lucifer had higher potential for evil, maybe whatever. And then he acted on it, but it was more complicated than simply annihilating him or even isolating him. At that point, he's been isolated now and we think adjudicated, but it's not so simple a process as one would think at the beginning.
No, and so the only thing that Michael could do was nothing. And I've often given this advice to people, and it works out. It's like, if you don't know what to do, then your best course of action is to do nothing. Just do your life maintenance. You keep up with your life maintenance stuff, but if you don't know what to do, what direction to take, then don't do anything. Stay put. Just life maintenance. Like, take care of yourself, do what you got to do, and then you just trust. Because sometimes the Eternal Father just likes to put us in a holding pattern. There's good reason for it sometimes. Well, all the time, I should say. Sometimes we can understand the reason, but usually only after years of reflection. But the Father knows what he's doing. So if the Father puts you in a holding pattern, you just stay there. Just maintain your job, maintain your life. Don't make any big decisions. Just relax. Don't take out any loans. Don't, when the time is right, the Father's going to present the path. And it's like, okay, there it is. Finally, let's get going. And, well, I mean, this is why you pray, too, because you bug the Father enough. It's like, okay, I've been in this holding pattern long enough. Time to fucking move on. And, hey, you might even find a nice, comfortable holding pattern. You just sit there for a while. But sooner or later, when you're ready, you will make the decision. And God will respond. And but this decision has to be sincere, and also the time has to be right. And if you're like, if you pay attention to this instead of this, then you'll know when the time is right. And your heart has its own neurosystem. Your heart is actually a brain. Yes. Again, new science that they don't teach you in school. But your heart has a neural network within it. It has a mind of its own. And the Urantia book does say we are two-minded beings. I think a lot of you think that it's left and right. Those are hemispheres. Those aren't two minds. Those are hemispheres. Your second mind is here. We've just don't know how to use it properly. And so we are two-minded individuals. And once you learn how to use it properly, because this one will do all the mathematical calculations for you. This mind. This one will, you can have a great life just using this mind. You could calculate things, you can make money, you could earn a living, do a trade. You can do it all with these two hemispheres. This mind here, this is for spiritual stuff. And unless you make the connection between the two, and for some people, it's a lot easier than it is for others. The people have a higher potential for spiritual things, like Lucifer had a higher potential for evil things. And, Michael not doing nothing, the purpose of that was to basically give Lucifer a chance to destroy himself, because it had to be up to the other Lagandadoc sons to reject Lucifer's philosophy, and they did. There was only a handful of Lagandadoc sons that rebelled with Lucifer.
Right. Yeah. So a smart parent or a smart teacher may not immediately discipline a rebelling child. They might let them do some of their stuff for a while and let their peers see and decide exactly whether that's a good thing or not.
Yeah. And that is exactly what Michael did. He let Lucifer's peers decide. And I believe the Urantia book told us that by like 100,000 years in or something like that, that they just a lot of other personalities were like, you know what, you're just a little fucked in the head. And
Yep.
after the crucifixion, nobody had any time for Lucifer and his ilk. Zero patience for them. It was like anybody that was left like on the fence was immediately taken off the fence after the crucifixion. You wondered why Michael went through all of that? It wasn't just for us. It was for his whole universe. And they witnessed how he lived his life and what he did. And they witnessed what Lucifer did and Satan, his emissary, did. I mean, they were outraged. Completely outraged. Lucifer, after that, and everybody involved with him was completely isolated. Done. Michael, at that point, probably could have passed judgment on all of them and eliminated all of them, but he chose not to. Again, mercy. Gave them more mercy, more time. And here's the best part. Even the rest of the universe were like, why? We know how fucked up they are. Kind of like the position that we're in right now with the Biden administration. It's like, seriously, can't you see this? These people are whacked out of their fucking minds. It's like, what is it going to take? And this was the frustration that the people in the real, the personalities in the real, they felt at that time. They felt Michael should have just like ended it. Michael was like, nope, more mercy. They want to give them time. And and so Satan was put on house arrest on Jerusalem. Lucifer was locked up in a cage and was in orbit of a world, the Father's world in Michael's universe. And as far as we know, about sometime in the mid 80s, it was communicated through different mediums that Lucifer was adjudicated. He no longer exists as a personality in the universe. He's been recycled back in. Satan was still under house arrest on Jerusalem, pending his trial. And it's more than likely that Satan will be sentenced to eternity on the Father's planet, where he will have to serve the Father's will for eternity. Basically, he'll be attending gardens. Basically, he's a farmer for the rest of eternity, or unless he decides to end his own existence, which is his free will choice to do at any time. And so we'll see what happens. And so you might actually, if you end up on the Father's world, which is actually a good possibility before you leave this universe to go explore another universe, I believe you will have to spend some time on the Father's planet and serve the will of the Father. And this planet is where the Finilators hang out. This is their planet in Michael's universe. And it's also where immature souls, the souls of children, go to be raised by the Finilators, which are all basically God. They're fathers, is what they are. They are fathers, and they will walk these young souls into maturity. So that's how that works. Anyways, yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I got one more. I guess, yeah, one more point, and we've actually managed to get through what I thought was a lot of them. Let's say, just wondered what your comments on something like, say the Star Wars, Star Trek fandom, any big science fiction thing like that is created by a group of people and then it's put out. At one of the furry convention panels or something, they talk about how the furry fandom is created by its members, and rather than it's like kind of a huge difference between that and say a Disney thing like that, or the Star Wars. George Lucas came up with all this stuff and put it out for consumption. The furry fandom is more like a co-op than a corporation, I guess. Just thought what are your thoughts on that?
The closest,
didn't know how much you knew about it or mentioned.
When it comes to like relating fiction to reality, the most accurate fictional story would probably be Stargate. Because here's the thing. When a prince is dispatched to a world, they bring the technology for building Stargates to that world. This is why it was so devastating to our planet when all the circuits to the universe were cut. Because it meant that we could not travel between worlds anymore. Now, mind you, we were not doing it when Dalmatia was first created. This was going to be later technology down the road, okay? And it would eventually have happened. But when, after the rebellion, Caligastia decided to build Stargate. Now, usually only one Stargate is built on a planet. Later on, other Stargates are built, but usually when a planet is on the path to light and life. But for like 100,000, 200,000, whatever, 300,000 years, there's only one gate on the planet. Caligastia authorized many Stargates on the planet. And also the Fallen, they built their own. And all the nice ones, they're like the really good ones, they were destroyed in the first cataclysm 52,000 years ago. The ones that we can see today, one is in Peru or Bolivia, right there on that border, and they're simple, and they can only travel between one point. The one that the prince of a planet builds is one that can travel between multiple points. And this is how everything gets connected in Michael's universe. And we were being, like, when you go to places in Peru, there's this one place in, or Bolivia, and they call it a temple, but anything they don't understand, they call it temple. It's like, fuck me. And so anyways, in this temple, there are hundreds of faces, and every face is different, and they're like alien faces. And the story of this temple is that, believe it or not, they say that these are the 1,000 races in the universe. They just say that shit. Now, Western archaeologists would say something different, but I don't really care what Western archaeologists say. I want to know what the local people say, because the local people know what the fuck's going on, because it's their culture. Why am I going to listen to some guy from England that just walked in, looked around for 12 months, wrote a book and said, this is this and this is that? And it's just like, no. So yeah, talk to the local people. If you want to know what's going on, the locals know what's going on. Just getting them to talk is tough. And but they openly will tell you that these are the 1,000 faces of the 1,000 races. So you sit there and you look at all of this and you scratch your head, and it's like, there was a lot of coming and going on this planet a long, long time ago of different races. It's like, why? And that was the fall in creating technology so that they could do that. And they were only able to do it limitedly between the worlds that rebelled, the 36 other planets that rebelled. They didn't have access to the other worlds that stayed loyal. So they built these bastardized Stargates so that they could travel back and forth. And they must have did a good job, but what they were doing is they destroyed the environment. The cataclysm 52,000 years ago, that was not Michael's making. It wasn't even the universe that did it. They did it to themselves. Because what they were doing is they were using this planet, this fourth dimensional planet, like it was a fifth dimensional planet or sixth dimensional. And it's just like, you can't do that, people. but they didn't care. And so what ended up happening is the planet reacted to this, and it split. It split apart. It exploded in the center. And, it's like, no, Crow, that's fucked up. How can you say that? Look at the planet when all the water is removed out of the oceans. And the planet looks. Okay? It looks like it was just pulled and twisted apart. And then water came and filled it. Well, where'd the water come from? Well, when that happened to the Earth, quite a few other things happened in this solar system at the same time. There was a planet, a pre-52,000, and they were doing other things. Now, this actually, okay, this might be fun. Okay, what I'm about to go into was actually something that came to me in a dream. So take it for what it's for, what you whatever. So, and I didn't even know what to think of this, but it was fucked up. Okay, there's this planet, this ocean planet, and it's called in historical terms, it was called Tiamat, and Mars orbited Tiamat, and on this water planet were gigantic creatures that swam in its ocean, like crazy big, huge, like we're talking like kilometers long creatures, huge creatures. And these creatures would lay eggs. Okay? This was actually in answer to where did the moon come from? Okay, when I asked the question, what of the moon? Where did it come from? And this is what I was showing. Okay? Kilometer long creatures in this ocean. These oceans are deep. I mean, it's messed up. And water comes from the sun, by the way. And so there's no shortage of water in the universe. Just look at the moons of other planets. There's just so much water. So much water. Locked in ice, but it's water. So anyways, huge creatures, and what I was showing is that these creatures would lay these eggs, these moon-size eggs.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you an idea of how big these creatures are. Okay, see the size of an egg that comes out of a chicken. Okay, so you get the ratio. Now apply that. Moon, what kind of creature could have farted this out? A huge, huge creature. And what these people did is that they would go and they would capture one of these eggs, and it was quite the ordeal. When I was showing, like, it was a planned operation, and they had ships, energy sources, so they were traveling, and it's actually relatively easily to travel within a solar system. It's intersolar travel that becomes a bitch. So they got one of these eggs, but what they captured, and what I could see, was a small one. And they would capture these eggs, and they would get them off the planet. But they would have to fight with the mother to get them. These creatures were very protective of their eggs. And sometimes it resulted in the death of the mother. They had use for the material from the mother, too. So they would get this this egg off the planet and out into space. And then and if they killed the creature, which they did, they would transport the creature back, pieces of it, chunks of it, back to Earth. And they would use that material as building material. How messed up is that? And so I was like, wow, really? And so it might explain a few things. And so they would get this egg out into space, and then they would cut holes in the shell, and they would utilize the yolk and all the stuff inside of it, and they could use that for fuel, and they would basically just get all the material out, and they could use it, and they would have a hollow sphere that they would then take, and they would put in struts to stabilize the shell, and they could use these spheres to do intergalactic or interstellar travel, so that they could move from solar system to solar system. And they could do this with ease. And they could have a whole ecosystem inside these moons. And it was the best material to use, because it was like concrete without all the nasty side effects of concrete. I mean, the shells were like marble, essentially. Yes, there are nasty side effects to concrete. Concrete, just to give you an example, concrete, it takes like 100 years for concrete to cure. Okay? I mean, it cures enough in 30 days or 28 days that we could start building on it, and it's strong enough, but technically it takes 100 years for concrete to cure completely. And that process starts out fast, and then it gets slower and slower and slower until it's a geological crawl, essentially. But it usually finishes itself up in 100 years. But in the meantime, in that 100 years period, the concrete is soaking up elements, and it's giving off elements all the time. And it's essentially a sponge, and it will just keep doing this. And the way that it combines these chemical elements is that sometimes it takes out of the atmosphere things that we want, and it will release things that we don't want. It's depending on what's available in the atmosphere. A lot of research has gone into concrete. It's a beautiful, beautiful material to use in construction. I mean, you do anything with it. And so that's just one of the downfalls of concrete, is that so they had these shells. And so when Tiamat exploded, there was already one of these big moons in our solar system that they were using to transport and to do things, and or moving interstellarly around the galaxy. So that moon was brought into our orbit after Tiamat, because Tiamat originally was the body in space that kept our planet fluctuating so that the core would stay alive, because, you know, energy. And when Tiamat exploded, that gravitational effect was lost. So another body had to replace it in the sky to create that gravitational effect. And also, Okay, now I'm off. Okay, the dream is done. Now we're going off to what I've learned afterwards, or just other I don't know, through other knowledge. And so, anyways, most of the water that's in our oceans, and actually a lot of the marine life in our oceans, came from Tiamat.
Hmm.
Because when Tiamat exploded, the water would freeze, and aquatic life has this wonderful ability to survive in ice. And so that ice traveled through space until it came into contact with our planet, and it would come through the atmosphere as rain, and sometimes as big chunks of ice, and slam into our oceans. Also, if you look at the ocean floor without the water, you will see impacts you'll see crater impacts. This was not from, these were not rocks that hit our planet. These were big chunks of ice. And if it was rocks, our planet would be destroyed. Because if you see the amount of craters that are under the ocean, it's like, how the fuck did this planet survive that shit? And the truth is, it didn't. And also, there's other evidence on the continental USA where there are like these multiple craters, but they don't look like normal craters. And what scientists have figured out is that these were craters, impact craters, created by big chunks of ice. And so there is evidence that we had ice coming through our atmosphere. And so that's, and then there is an ancient story that talks about a cataclysm that happened, and this guy says that he watched a name of a continent. I forget what the name of it is, and he watched it drift away from him within his lifetime.
Hmm.
And it's just like, wow. He watched the continent sink. He watched the continent sink across the horizon. That's how he described it. And he watched it happen in his lifetime. And then the oceans came. And then the moon. First there was the moon, and then there was the oceans. And you go back far enough in time, and you can read in some of these texts where it talks about a time before the moon, when there were two stars in the sky. And if Tiamat was an ocean planet, well, it would reflect the sun like it was a second sun in the sky. So apparently at that time, it was described that the earth was never dark, because when the first sun went down, the second sun would come up, and it would give just a twilight glow over the planet. So, and when you think about that, you'd think that would explain why in the oldest, like you get like in the oldest ruins that we see, there is no facilitation for lighting.
Hmm.
And just like, well, what the hell? And so that might have been the reason why. And that's the thing. If the sun was reflecting off of a planet like Tiamat, it would give you light, but it wouldn't give you heat. So you would have light in the cool of the evening, and so yeah, you'd be able to sleep, and the light was not bright at all. So yeah, you'd be able to sleep. You'd have a good time. You wouldn't have to worry about street lamps because there's always light out. You'd be walking around 3 o'clock in the morning. It'd be like walking around in the up north in the summertime at 3 in the morning. It's like the sun is like there, but it's low on the horizon that you don't really feel the heat of it, but you're getting all kinds of light from it. I mean, 3 o'clock in the morning in the North Pole or up north is actually nice because, believe it or not, noon hour, it's actually hot as fuck. Like, you are burning outside. And so, what a planet. So,
Cool.
man, I'm trying to remember other stuff that happened this week, too. I think that was a fun little
I haven't
deviation.
been, yeah. Yeah. I haven't been listening. We've been running around getting water and fixing up our fanning mill so we can clean odds and ends of grain and stuff like that. I haven't been listening. I know there was a live stream today by the President of the United States Department of Political Comedy. I haven't looked at it, or I'll go see if the comments are still up. I can say it's always nice to hear from anyway, but
Oh yeah,
whatever. So
yeah, after that CPAC speech with Trump, I'm just like, if you don't think that he's president of the United States, still think again. It's like, wow, because here's the thing: governors are not calling the White House; they're calling Mar-a-Lago. Why is that? Well, we know why it is. At least 15 governors are calling Mar-a-Lago wondering what to do. Yeah. So it's like he's still in charge, but he's not in charge. It's like people just I mean people are drawn by his leadership, and so it doesn't seem to matter who's in the White House. These governors that are still drawn by his leadership, and so they still come to him. So it's like, well, who the fuck's in charge? And all he's saying is that he's educating these governors. He's telling these governors, it's like, look at, you have you have rights as a state. He's like, why do you think when I was president, I didn't tell you guys what to do? I let you guys take care of it yourself. You know your people best. The founding fathers put it in the Constitution. It's all there. And he's not really telling them anything, that he's not even manipulating them or even trying to get them on his side. He's basically telling them, it's like, the law is right there. All you got to do is follow it. That's what he's telling them. And it's just, so now it's like they're getting the balls to follow it and to do it. We've seen that with the Texas governor this week. It's just like 100% open. Enough of this stupid shit. It's in violation of our Constitution. We're done with it. Rolling back all the special powers. And it's just like, wow, that's something else. I bet you didn't see that.
On one of the times, I think it was when Obama was in the White House, they proposed a bunch of anti-gun legislation, and I think the state of Missouri, I think, and others passed a law that said they would, if any federal officer came to attempt to enforce it, they would arrest them.
Oh, yeah. Because it's an illegal law.
Right.
And if a federal officer is trying to enforce a illegal law, then the states do have every right to arrest them.
Yeah.
Because it's like all they got to do is they just got to follow the Constitution. How many times have we said that? Just follow the God.
Mm-hmm.
The founding fathers laid it all out. All you got to do is just follow it. So it's like, man, it's like, it's not that hard. Just follow the law. And shit. Oh man, there was another. Oh, when I don't know if I said this on the stream before, but I think I might have said it to you. It's like, if "In God We Trust" is on the money, doesn't that make God president of the United States?
Maybe.
I mean, think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
In God We Trust. Well, doesn't that put him in charge? That just means that the president is just a placeholder.
God's president. The guy in the White House is vice president.
And when, I mean, if you take that and you really think about that, and you look at all the presidents that have come and gone, it seems like the ones that have deviated is that some of these, you ever notice how quickly they age when they get in office?
Mm.
It's like when they didn't want to follow the principles that were laid out, it's almost like, you know what? I'm not gonna help. It's like God lifted His grace from them.
Mm.
But then you look at a guy like Trump, 4 years in office. He's probably had the hardest 4 years of any president. That fucker looks better when he came out of office than what he went in.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I
He
mean,
hasn't aged a day.
if anything, he looks younger. It's like, oh, you just went through the shittiest 4 years of your life. I mean, the only conclusion is that I can come to is that this guy just thrives on bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like fucking you bring it on. I just like fucking batter up, and every time they fucking flew a pile of shit at him, he would send it right back to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, yeah, it's like, and it's, I don't know. To me, it almost seems like he was having fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he was having too much
I got
fun.
that.
Yeah, he was having too much fun being president.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, buddy, they're attacking you from all sides, and you're just going along like, yeah, you know what? I'm having fun with it. It's it's almost like something that I would do. I mean, if I am surrounded by enemies on all sides, and like, I would go out of my way to have more fun with their bullshit than what I would normally. Normally, I would just want to ignore them, but it's like, man, you keep putting this shit on my doorstep. I will use this shit, and I will paint a fucking portrait on the doorstep with it. It's like, you're not going to fuck with me. I'll find a way. And I think that's what Trump did. It's like, you're not going to fuck with me. I'm going to have fun with this shit. And like, you can say what you want, but I still have access to like some of the most top secret programs that you'll never know exist. I mean, how can you not have fun with that? I mean, can you imagine if you're the president of the United States and you knew how to ask the right questions, the shit you could find out? Oh, what? You think they tell the new president everything? Hell no. There's a brief that they have that they give the new president. If he does not ask any questions, they're not answering. They're not saying shit.
Mm-hmm.
They're not volunteering answers at all. The only obligation these people have to the president is to answer questions.
Right.
There is no obligation for them to volunteer anything.
Answer his questions, find out the information he wants, and that's it.
Yeah.
Unless he asks for something, he's not going to get it usually.
And that's atypical. I mean, to me, that makes sense. I mean, am I supposed to read your mind and know what the next question is? Hell no. So there's that. Oh, I know what it was that I wanted to remember. We found out another thing this week. That was fun. This whole election irregularity thing has not gone away. It's like there's still court cases. What was it? Mississippi, I think. Something like 75% of the mail-in ballots are invalid. They want a new election. It's just like, what the hell? So that came out. I believe the judges finally got pissed off with the elections board in Arizona, and they basically sent the authorities to be like, you know what, you need, or there's going to be some people going to jail. So I believe that they complied with the subpoena, but there was one little problem. The ballots that they surrendered to the court were in little chunks of paper and all in garbage bags. I'm just like, are you shitting me? So these damn things got stuck in a warehouse somehow, some way. Well, actually, I know how. Follow logic and reason. Back in November, December, there were trucks showing up at warehouses shredding papers, and they were like, oh, we just come and we just do this. And people were showing up with video cameras, and huge like stink was being done about it. Shit was on the news. I'll guarantee you, somewhere in that company, somebody was like, you know what? We don't need this shit. We've got enough work that we don't need to be pulling up to these places where the voting took place and be shredding God knows what and get caught up in that shit show. So I imagine that there was a call from like the recycling place that was supposed to pick up this shit, and they were like, yeah, we're not coming to pick up that shit because we think it's toxic and we don't want nothing to do with it. And the beautiful thing about using the word toxic, it has varying degrees of meaning. And it's like, yeah, are we talking like radiation toxic, chemical toxic, or we're just talking criminally toxic? Either way.
And it always amazes me. It always amazes me that you said the it cut out a bit, but I think you said the subpoenaed ballots were delivered as confetti, basically, and it always amuses me. Okay, now, so before there was some slight question of what was going. Now there's even less of a question about whether foul play is going on. Now they can be charged with destroying evidence or something, or obstruction of justice or something like that. I'm always amazed at the lengths which these people go to. What was it? I don't know if you've ever seen the webcomic Free Fall, but there's this alien. There's this alien captain who basically comes from a planet where it's every man from himself, and he said, and he he's kind of this con man on one of the colonized worlds of humans. This is set several hundred years in the future, and he makes some mistake, and then he tries to cover it up, and he says, my original crimes never cause as much exposure as my attempts to cover them up do.
That can be so true. I mean, how many movies have we watched, and like crime movies, where it's like, it was so like the crime was easy, but then the effort to cover it up just it was an ongoing chore.
Yep.
And so yeah, we got that irregularity. Oh, and then another irregularity that has surfaced. Oh man, this one's my favorite. Got this little comedy channel that I like watching called Louder with Crowder. He amuses me. And he openly admits he's a comedian, not a political commentary, but there's so much bullshit going on in politics, like it's like shit writes itself. What is a comedian supposed to do? But unfortunately, he's put himself in the position that because he does political comedy and political satire, he has put himself in the position of discovering things that he has no business discovering. This should have been a job of a journalist. What the fuck? He's like, even he's like, I'm a fucking comedian. Why did me and my team stumble across this and a journalist has not? I mean, how pathetic is that a comedian comes across something that a journalist should have easily come across? Now, what did he come across? Well, they were doing something, and they decided that they would, just for fun, they would just, see how many names were real on the voter roll in Las Vegas. Just for fun. They really didn't expect, they expected, to show up at some addresses, knock on a door. Might not be the person that you're looking for, but, it might be fun comedy, okay? Just to show. Well, shit me drawers. They start looking at addresses, and what do they find? Empty lots. Addresses on throughways. Addresses under bridges. And they're just like, what the fuck did we just stumble into? And at first they were like doing this on Google Earth. And then he's like, well, I want to put this on YouTube. And his lawyer's like, no. You can't put that on your YouTube. You'll get your channel banned. Steven's like, why? It's like, because you can't prove it. He says, unless you are willing to go to those addresses, hold up a newspaper with today's date on it, and video that shit, you cannot post it to YouTube. It'll be labeled as fake news, and you'll end up getting banned. Steven's like, well, shit. Okay, let's go to some addresses. And well, it turned out that he couldn't go. So he knew people that were living in these areas, and so he asked them to go and video it for him. And so they did. And yeah, they came back and showed us the video footage, and we're like, what the hell? So, and it keeps getting better, is what ends up happening. So he did this in Las Vegas, and then he did it in Michigan because he had knew somebody in Michigan, and that person was going to be in his studio, so it made good sense to have that person do it. And yeah, between those two cities alone, all the addresses they went to were either empty lots or warehouses. Messed up. So it was like, wow, okay, messed up. And then in Las Vegas, he had one guy do it first, but then there was another guy that seen his show, and he was like, you know what? He got a hold of the show, and he was like, you know what? I've lived in Las Vegas my whole life. Why don't you give me your list, and I'll tell you what addresses are real and what addresses are fake. He says, I could probably knock about 90% of those addresses off for you, no problem. And he was like, okay, no problem. Told him where to download the list, and so he did. He downloaded the list. And yeah, he did. He knocked off, I think he knocked off well over 50% of the addresses that were on the voter roll as fake addresses. And the reason why he was able to knock them off so fast as fake addresses is because apparently the way things are done in Las Vegas, and it's probably, well, I guess a little bit of it is done like this in Saskatchewan, is that you have what would be boulevards that go through neighborhoods, and they're usually 4-laned boulevards, 2 lanes going one way to the other. Arcola, good example, okay? All the addresses where people live are off of Arcola. Nobody lives on Arcola because it's a boulevard. Traffic's flying through there at like 80K. You don't even want to cross that sucker during rush hour. And if you do decide to cross it, even if you've got the light, you better look both ways. Mm-hmm. You know, so I mean, you know, there is nothing there. Well, that's how this guy was able to knock off so many addresses. He's like, these are boulevards. There is nothing there. And so he would just knock it off. He went to these addresses. Yeah, you know what was there? A bush. That's what the address was. He gets there. He's like, well, according to Google Maps, I'm standing at this number, and all I got is a cedar bush. Knocks on the cedar bush. Anybody home? So anyways, that so with all of that Steven Crowder had found, he decided that he had enough, that he should be able to make a phone call to the voters registration board in Las Vegas, get some ideas. You got to see the video, buddy. It was, I mean, he cut the video down for us for like maybe like 15, 20 minutes. But you could see through the cuts that he did in the video, just how painful that conversation was. And the pieces that you did hear from it was just like, I couldn't even believe this shit. It's like, all Steven wanted to know was like, how do you know that they're accurate? And, you know, and how is your updating done? And this guy, for some odd reason, was like, so you don't like it when we update the voter rolls? And Steven's like, no, it's just that it says that you update the registration every Monday, but we've seen these change on a Tuesday night. And then Buddy tried to spin it like, well, yeah, it's only the website that's updated on Monday. In which case Steven was like, yeah, but why did we see it on Tuesday night being updated? If you only update for the public on a Monday, why on a Tuesday or Tuesday morning did you do an update? You changed addresses. And the worst part yet, he said, not only did you change addresses, you changed addresses from one bullshit address to another bullshit address. And some of them was just a matter
go ahead and send me the video. I'll put it in the show notes.
And it's like it was just a matter of like changing the west to the east. And it's just like, oh my God. Oh yeah, you gotta see it. It gets way fucking, like, it gets way worse. It's like, I mean, what they stumbled across is potentially, like, it may actually involve murder, what they stumbled across. Like, it's fucked up. Because of the names of the voter registration, like there was one name in particular that they changed an address on, which would obviously get your attention. And suddenly Crowder remembered, wait a second, I know that name. That is a name that was in the news a couple of years ago. And she went missing. And nobody has seen her since 2018, I think, or 2016. And it's just like, what the fuck did you just stumble across? This person who has not been seen since 2016 changes their address, updates their address in 2021 on a Tuesday morning? See what I mean? What the fuck did these guys stumble into? I have no idea. Boys better be careful. That's all I got to say. Okay. But yeah, there's some weird stuff going on, and people are starting to figure it out that, you know what, this whole election shit, it ain't over. It's amazing how the whole plan that Michael put together, it's like I can see everything that Michael has done in my mind. I can see it, but trying to describe it is just, you got to know what was going on at that point in history. But when you look at it and you understand, you see the wisdom in Michael's plan, step by step by step, the progression of human spiritual growth and human intelligence and human intellect, and in technology and understanding how it goes up and how it keeps going. And in a way, it's like, because of what D did, our evolution had to be slowed down. And so technically Michael was actually working against nature. So he really, there was some fine work that had to be very careful. Can't upset the balance for the whole universe for one planet, really, right? I mean, it all has to work together. And so we were held back, and the evidence of us being held back is in the 11th century, there were people sailing from Scottish to Eastern Canada on a regular basis. We have evidence of that shit. Mm-hmm. It's, it's all over Nova Scotia. All you got to do is look for it. I mean, we're tripping over it, for fuck's sakes. And again, the First Nations, they'll tell you the story. Yeah, men came across the ocean. We signed treaty. We did good trade. And then men stopped coming. What a pain in the ass. And then when new men came, we were happy to trade again. Why do you think the Indians were so eager to trade when Europeans showed up in the East? It's because they already experienced trade with Europeans, but they did not have the technology to make the journey across the ocean. The Europeans did. So they had the advantage, of course. I mean, you think for a second that the Europeans could have conquered this continent without the cooperation of the First Nations? Of course not. And if the First Nations understood for 2 seconds and cooperated amongst each other instead of trying to kill each other, the Europeans would not have had a chance. They wouldn't have made it past New Brunswick. Guaranteed. You wouldn't have got past that. That would have been it. And the only reason we would have Europeans would have New Brunswick is because they had the upper hand on the marine technology. I mean, going across the ocean is not just a matter of having a good boat. You need shit to be able to navigate. And you need to understand how to use that shit. Because if you don't, you're lost. And if you're lost at sea, you're dead. That's all there is to it. Watch that movie, Life of Pi. If that's a true story, that fucker survived that shit. Yeah, God was beside him the whole time. Because nobody survives that long at sea. Nobody. You're dead. Water everywhere is not a drop to drink. And if you try to, you're just going to speed your demise. Parched lips. How about seawater on your lips? Then it dries off and it leaves the salt. Yeah, what do you think's going to happen?
Okay, so it's looks like 4:05. We got a good solid 2 hours out of this. I think it was a
I think the
pretty good
first hour was good on
conversation.
it. I think the first hour was the good one.
Hmm.
Yeah, usually we have
Well,
a
if you're
good
going to rate
second
it
hour.
hour by hour, maybe, yeah. Okay.
Usually we have a good second hour.
This time we had a good first hour. Well, maybe it's about time to wind it down and sign off.
I'm Crow.
I'm Peter.
And this has
And this
been,
has been Q&A with P and K.
Salute.
Peace out.